have, I wonder if we've talked about Amelia before. I don't know. I
Oh,
think
we definitely have. I'm sure we've mentioned Amelia before.
Amelia, welcome to ShrinkChicks, darling. Please introduce yourself to the wonderful listeners and audience.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amelia. I'm a therapist at the therapy group, and I mostly work with individual men, and couples.
And we wanted to do today's episode because also you offer intensives, which we're going to get into. But really, we wanted to talk about, because one of the things that come up a lot that we hear people say is, when we tried couples therapists before, we either didn't like it or didn't vibe with the therapist. It didn't work. And like, what the fuck do I do now? Because everyone's sort of like, you need couples therapy, you need couples therapy. But like, what if I tried and it didn't work? And the reason we wanted to have you on is because you're sort of, we know when we send you a couple, they're going to stick with you. And I think that that is interesting, right? Like, and we say like not every therapist is for everyone, but I think there's something very unique to your approach. Tell us about your approach to couples therapy, and what do you say? Because I would imagine you've heard this before too.
Yeah.
We tried couples therapy, it didn't work for us.
Yeah, I have heard that before. So my approach. So often what I hear from couples, and I hear this actually from individuals too. Like, I once had an individual male client say like, oh, at the end of our first session together, he was like, oh, whoa, you might actually help me. And I think he had been with other therapists before. What I hear often is we just didn't really receive any guidance. Like, nobody really taught us or told us what to do. So they would kind of reflect a lot. They would say, oh, okay, I hear you saying this, or I think your partner's trying to communicate X. But then we were sort of left to kind of fend for ourselves in the session and then afterwards. And I guess my approach is that I tell people what to do. I break it down, and I sometimes even coach like the minutia, right? Can you put your hand on her knee? Can you soften your face a little bit? Can you, can you try saying this? I might even give them a script to try and say. So I'm very, very directional in my approach. And I think that's probably the biggest difference that people experience. They're like, oh, you're telling me what to do, which I think, if you think about it, right, they're coming to you for a reason. They don't know how to do some of these things. They don't know that it's an option, or they've never experienced themselves, like, especially with, if you have a male client who doesn't really know how to be tender, you can't just say, okay, now be tender, and expect them to know what that looks like. Now, I'm not saying that they can't go off and figure out tenderness on their own. They could read, they can watch YouTube videos, they can talk to their friends, they can talk to other women, whatever it is, to figure out what tenderness looks like. But sometimes they need direction on that. And so I provide that direction.
How do you feel? Because, and we always talk about how incredible you being that directive is, especially in couples therapy, right? Like, they need the tools to be able to take with them. Otherwise, they would be able to do it at home.
Yes.
But I'm wondering, when you are that directive, how do you find couples are responding to that? Like, what's that experience like for you?
Well, I mean, there's always like, sometimes it can be a little bit awkward, right? Because you're in the middle of having conflict or having some sort of intense emotional experience with your partner, and then you have this relative stranger step in and start telling you what to say or what to do, or will say, sometimes they'll be like, well, I've said that before, we've talked about this before, and I'll have to be like, well, try it again, do it again, or sort of, if we could put the awkwardness aside, if you could just practice it. And I think, it takes a couple of seconds to kind of sink into the experience, but often couples are pretty good. They want this. They want this. They both want to be able to give it to their partner, to experience themselves doing these different things, or finally resolving conflict, or they see their partner in this new way. And And so they get over a little bit of the discomfort or the awkwardness of having somebody watch them or coach them, and they just are ready to sort of absorb it or soak it up for the most part. I mean, obviously, sometimes it doesn't land quite right, or he or she is still not saying it right, or still not doing it right, or it's not enough, or I didn't mean this, or I wanted something else. But people, I mean, if they're paying money to come see you, like they're looking for, most of the time, they're looking for legitimate help. And so they want that direction, I think.
You know what's so funny is in this moment is when I just connected of this is what makes you such a good director of our intern program, which I didn't make this, which we didn't mention, is that Amelia also is the director of our entire internship program.
Yeah.
Takes care, and I didn't actually make that connection until right now. Like
we just felt it. We were just like, oh,
that's
really
what
good at this.
she'd be great at this. But that's actually what I was craving the entire time I was doing my graduate internship.
Yeah.
Was like, I remember saying like, can I fucking watch this somewhere? Can someone, like, you guys keep talking about this like in theory,
I
like,
remember in classes we would say to each other, we're just talking about theory. We're not talking about how does this actually look.
Yes, I 100%. That is exactly what I remember, because you know what? It wasn't until I graduated and I worked in New York, and I watched a couple of things. I read it, finally you're able to like read the stuff that you actually give a shit about outside of, your graduate
not
program.
an article from 1970.
Right.
No.
All from 1970.
No, they looked like they were written on a fucking typewriter.
Right.
That's all I know.
Most of them probably were. But it basically was like, it gave me permission to be myself in therapy. And that was really a pretty radical idea for me, because I had this like concept of what a therapist is supposed to sound like, what a therapist is supposed to do. And one of them being like, you're supposed to be able to ask a particular question or make this sort of revelation with a client where they suddenly make the connection themselves, or they just suddenly they're like they are inspired or something like that, and that you're sort of like coaxing it out of them almost covertly. And I had read or heard somewhere like, why not just tell the client exactly how you're experiencing them?
Yes.
Why not speed this shit up a little bit?
Right, exactly. Like, why make them spend all this money, all this time when you know something, when you sense something? They're paying you for that intuition, for your clinical judgment. So give it to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't want it. Sometimes they're like, fuck you, that's wrong, or I don't like that and I'm done. And that's a price you pay, right? That's an occupational hazard.
Right.
But for the most part, people are like, they may know these things about themselves, and you're finally saying it to them in a way that's like, I love you and I care about you and I want the best for you. And here is what I'm seeing. And it may be actually really getting in the way of you feeling satisfied in your life or in your relationships. So, and you're right. Like when I was an intern, nobody was telling me like, again, it was almost like what they had been trained to do in therapy, which was like to guide you in a very covert, backseat kind of this like quiet way, where I was like, no, just tell me what to do. And then I'm going to go out there and do it. And then I'm going to make the mistakes and I'm going to see like, did that work? Can I put my own spin on it? How do I make it mine? But yeah, people need, I think, a little more direction.
Well, and honesty.
Yes.
I mean, I guess there's also something about that covertness, which like it gives me a weird feeling in my belly of like this, like I'm like, I'm like, it feels like it's sneaky, right? And I think that we talk about this a lot on ShrinkChicks of like, there can feel like there's a gatekeeping in this industry. Like we're gonna like you know what I mean? Like we're gonna hold the secrets of healing. Like fuck that. Like let's just tell you the fucking truth.
Yeah.
And people can choose whatever they want to do with that. It's like it's not like we cannot control the outcome. But if I do not say it honestly and directly, like how are people supposed to know? And why are we not Why are we playing a game here?
That is what I don't understand, because we always talk about that, like, grad school was such great therapy for us because
Yes.
we learned all the tools to like use on ourselves,
Yes.
right? And that's what this podcast is too, is that we're like giving
We'll just
people,
tell everyone.
right? Why don't we just tell everyone what the deal is?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the most important thing about therapy, I think, is the relationship that you create with the other person or with the other people in the room. And you cannot have real intimacy of any kind if you are not being honest. It's just not possible. And that's often what you see with a lot of couples, right? Is that they've got all of these things bottled up inside about what they really feel, what they really want, how they really experience the relationship. And they struggle so much to say that, and then they're sort of wondering, like, why is my relationship the way that it is? And it's like, well, because you're not being fucking honest.
Yeah.
And I think, you know what, in the same way that couples sometimes struggle to tell the truth with love, obviously, to their partner about how they're feeling or what they need, I think therapists run into that problem too, right? Is like, can my client handle this? Are they like, what's going to happen if I share something that upsets them or hurts their feelings? And you run into that. I remember being in it, like, who I am now as a therapist is not who I was when I first started. When I first started, I was exactly what we're talking about. I was terrified. I was always afraid to say the wrong thing. If a client was upset, I made it mine. Like, this is my fault. I did or said something wrong. And just because somebody is upset or just because somebody's hurting because you shared something with them doesn't necessarily mean that what you shared is wrong or not true or shouldn't have been said in the first place.
And I think it also provides an opportunity to talk about the emotion that brings up. If you are right, that there's a reason why couples struggle to be honest in their relationship, right? And then there's an emotional response that comes up. And so as a therapist, to be able to see that in real time also gives you that opportunity to say, what's going on here, right? Like, what's coming up for you?
Yeah.
I had a therapist, my current therapist, at one point a few years ago. So why are you so obsessed with being nice? Like, why? Like, what is this fucking thing for you? Like, why is this like, this is the hill you have to die on? You're a nice person. Like, who fucking gives a shit? Like, because guess what? Like, it doesn't matter in the long run, right? What I hear you say is
what did you say to your therapist? That's not nice of you to say.
But I mean, it makes me think that we did, I think like last year we did an episode about lying, why we lie, right? We talked a lot about pro-social lies. Like, part of lying is to, like, we do this thing so we don't hurt other people. And it brings me back to that saying of what honesty without tact is cruelty. There is a way to be honest and compassionate. There is a way to be honest that you're not a fucking asshole. But the obsession with not hurting people, it doesn't actually do anything in the long run.
Yeah. And it not only in like your relationships out in the world, it doesn't do anything, but it really doesn't help you as a therapist. It doesn't help you as a therapist. You're not actually, I don't think, you're not doing your clients any you're not being of service to them ultimately.
And how contradictory is this to kind of the blank slate model that was originally taught in psychoanalysis, psychodynamic. And so it's, in a lot of ways, and I think all of us at our practice are very much more directive, that we don't believe in being a blank slate. We very much believe in relational healing and how the therapist can play a huge part in that.
Right. And I mean, it's not like you're bringing any of your shit into the room, right? I keep I'm very much focused on the person across from me or the people across from me, but I use my own body, my own heart, my own gut, all the things that I'm trying to help clients connect to. I use that within myself to guide how I'm feeling and how and what that might say about what's happening you know, in their relationship. I use like what I'm experiencing with them may be what other people might be experiencing with them. And so I share that, and I share it with like, you want to share it with hope and love, and say this is something that you can, if you want to, you can change this.
Mhm. And Amelia, I think it also speaks to how in touch and in tune you are with yourself, which I think,
Yeah, let's talk about your relationship now.
Oh God.
And when I say that, I mean the relationship with all of your chickens.
right?
Yes.
Because Amelia
Oh,
has a
my
lot of
chickens.
Rhonda,
Yeah.
Rhondas.
We lost one last night.
Oh, fuck, I'm so sorry.
I'm so
Was
Yeah.
to a fox?
sorry.
No, it was to a raccoon. Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
I know. It's part of having chickens. I mean, you can do the best that you can to protect them, but sometimes, you know, nature kicks your ass.
That's the honest truth.
That's parenthood too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God.
Right?
I don't.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's not to a raccoon, but I'm just saying it's life. Okay. So, but let me ask you this, because I want to talk a little bit about, oh my God, the thing on my, I don't know how to work this stupid watch. Jen made me get an Apple Watch. Just talking at me. I don't know how it works.
No one made you. Across the room.
Now they can check. I don't know what to do with that. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about intensives, because the other thing that you are now offering at the therapy group is couples intensives. And I think there is a ton of reasons of why somebody may choose to do an intensive over traditional couples therapy. Tell us a little bit about what an intensive looks like. Tell us why somebody might choose that. I want to hear all the info.
Okay, so what does an intensive look like? It's a little bit what it sounds like. It's intense couples therapy. So I originally was doing it at, they'd come in and we'd do 3 hours nonstop. And then we'd take an hour break. They would have time to eat lunch, and they would have an opportunity to reflect on what we just did in those first 3 hours. And then we would wrap up with 2. But I think I'm going to transition that and actually do 3 hours and then take a 24-hour break and then do another 3 hours to reflect on everything that had happened the previous day. And that was after getting some feedback from some of the guinea pigs that got to do the intensive. So why would somebody want to do an intensive? Okay. It is a lot of, I can get a lot of insight very quickly in 3 hours, because you're sort of locked into your couple's dynamic. Like, it's really easy to walk in to a 50-minute couple session and sort of avoid the important things that you need to be talking about, or to kind of hide who you really maybe are at home, or what you would really like to say, right? It's 50 minutes. You can get through that pretty quick.
I can fake anything.
It was grin and bear it.
Yes.
Yeah. No problem.
And so, and then you've got a week or sometimes 2 weeks before you have to do it again. And what I often find with couples is that they'll come in after 50 minutes and I'll say, all right, where do we start today? Where do you want to go today? And they kind of look at each other like, I don't really know. Where should we go? And 3 hours in one go, not only because you're paying the money for it, but you're signing up for 3 hours, right? It kind of forces you to sit for an extended period of time in some of the pain, in some of the discomfort. And you can't escape it, right? You're kind of forced to do it. And sometimes that's what people really need, right? Some of the feedback I got was like, thank God that we went that long, because it sort of forced me to, we're so good at avoiding our discomfort. Even at home, we're so good at it. And so this is forcing us. We've got somebody who's really pushing us to look at it and talk about it and uncover it. And Yeah.
Well, there's something that, right? So what comes up for me is that like it's horrifying and freeing at the same time.
Yeah.
Like both of those things can exist together, right? Like the
Yes.
relief of like,
Yes.
okay, like we're actually gonna fucking do this, and like I can like, you know, like I don't have to. It forces you into something to look at stuff in a way, and there is a freedom in that, and scary.
Yes. Yeah. It's very scary. But I think the other thing too, right, is you're doing it in a place that is dedicated to your relationship. And you have somebody there who is, I hope that they feel this, that I'm dedicated to the relationship too. Because my client, when I am doing individual work, it's the person across from me. But when I do couples work, it's the relationship. That's my client. And so they have somebody there who is fighting for that relationship alongside them. And I think that might be where some of the freedom comes, because it's like permission. You have permission to really focus on this because you signed up for it, right? You signed up for intensive couples therapy.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to also the dedication that both partners have to the relationship, because it's such a terrifying, like as wonderful as couples therapy is, just because we know the benefits of it, being on the other end of it is really fucking scary, and it's really hard. It is really, really hard. And I know we've talked about couples therapy in episodes before.
I hate going to couples therapy.
Not
it's really
fun.
scary.
So
no, I get it. I get it. Been there, been on the other side of the couch.
We all have.
And
it is rough.
Should be law. To be a couples therapist, you should have to be.
Oh
yeah.
Because to understand how vulnerable and scary it is unlike anything else.
And so that, I think, speaks volumes that, you are basically saying, I am going to make a choice to not like fake go into couples therapy where I'm only doing 50 minutes, where I am making this dedicated choice for my relationship. And even though it is going to be so uncomfortable for me, the relationship is worth it. And I think that speaks volumes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a clear sign for everybody involved that you're there. And sometimes you may go into an intensive to figure out, like, this may be a last ditch effort, right? Are we actually going to make it? And if we may discover in this work that we're not going to make it, but it's a clear sign to yourself and to the person across from you that you want to know. You want to do the work, and whether that leads you towards a more satisfying and connected relationship or towards, your paths diverge, you both want to figure that out. You really want to figure that out. And signing up for intensive therapy can definitely be a sign that that's what you're looking for.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I could also see other pros for it. You know what I mean? Like, I think, we've had this conversation before, Amelia. I realize what I'm going to say next is controversial. People don't like it. I don't like virtual couples therapy as someone
I hate virtual couples therapy.
Has been on both sides of it. I'm just not a fan. I understand that there are some situations where it's not an option, right?
Yes.
And that I can understand.
Right. It's very convenient, and there's can obviously be a lot of pros to
kids,
it.
Right.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that come into play,
and I see the part of an intensive is like, if I have kids at home and we have busy schedules, why not kickstart something beautiful for a large focus, right? Like, doing an intensive doesn't have to mean that it's a last ditch effort. Being an intensive can be, hey, we're busy people with busy lives. They'll have kids and it's hard to fit this in. And so here is our way of really kickstarting this. And I think people sometimes think, we've talked about this in 4, people think couples therapy in general is last ditch effort. I want us to start talking about this as if this is preventative maintenance. That it is a beautiful thing that doesn't need to be like this, that it doesn't have to be that shit is so bad, but instead, I just want to kickstart it.
Yes, so yes, 100%. I understand why it can be so beneficial to some people.
Yeah.
I no longer offer couples therapy virtually because I use my whole body when I do my work. And I am reading the people across from me too, right? Your whole body is involved in this relationship, and it's not just your brain floating around and your thoughts, right? You're deeply connected to what's happening below the neck. And if I've got a little tiny window to look at what's happening, and there's a barrier to you being able to connect to me, and then there's a glitch, and suddenly, the internet goes down, or you have to repeat something, or or there's something happening between this couple that, like, you can't see if somebody's reached across the chair and put their hand on somebody's knee. You can't see those things, and those are really important to understanding the people across from you. But also, like, sometimes you need to stand up, sometimes you need to lean into your chair, sometimes you need to sort of scoot your chair right next to a client and say, okay, like, let's get a little bit deeper into this together, right? You're sort of limited when it comes to the virtual world. And so I just I can still do my job when I do virtual therapy, but I can't do I'm not my best self when I'm virtual. And so I want to give my best self to the clients that I work with.
Well, and I think an intensive, and that's one of the things, is like somebody could travel in for an intensive.
Yes. Yeah.
2 days in a row, and you know what I mean? And like, because sometimes I understand, like, I think it's idealistic for us to say, like, well, you should make time for this. But like, also,
yeah, there's like, I mean, that's what everybody says. Make time for this, make time for that. Like, whatever your profession is, you're saying it's the most important thing, right? And so
right, exactly, right. So like, I think it's really like idealistic for us to sit here. But you want to know what? Sometimes when you got 4 kids at home, you got 2 careers, you don't got time.
Yeah.
We're gonna make it up more hours out of the day. We gotta
get it done.
Right?
Yes.
And I think there's no shame in that. Whatever works, man.
Yeah, because you could also, like, I mean, it doesn't have to be 2 days either, right? You could come in and you could do an intensive, you could do 3 straight hours with me. I guarantee there's going to be a lot that if information or something's going to happen in those 3 hours that I think would be helpful or illuminating in some way. Some movement is going to happen in the relationship. Sit with that for a month. Sit with that. You don't have to come back right away, right? You could do those 3 hours, and then you could say, okay, maybe we need a follow-up session. And maybe that follow-up session is like, an hour, and you just sort of reflecting on what you've learned. But I guess, a lot of times people are like, couples, I've worked with some couples for well over a year. And sometimes the movement that can happen when we sit for 3 hours in a prolonged session can be as much as what's discovered in a year's worth of couples therapy. So you don't need to do a year's worth of therapy to make some kind of discovery as to what's really going on. Because the point of the 3 hours is we're trying to bypass a lot of the bullshit and get to the deep rooted, typically, right? Because I think couples therapy is individual therapy happening in the presence of your partner. You're getting to deep rooted individual things, individual vulnerabilities, dilemmas, self-esteem, right? We're going to get there. We're going to focus on that. You're going to discover that at least. And then you can go potentially and work on that with your individual therapist.
And I think there's something to be said too about there being 3 hours for that, whereas it's a little more contained to be able to, like, if you're going to dive into some shit, for you to know that you have 3 hours and not 50 minutes, or that there's going to be more space for that, it can feel much safer to be able to do that, especially when it's in front of your partner.
Yeah, like, you don't have to suddenly, you're at 45 minutes and you're looking at the clock and you're like, oh, fuck, I just delved into some deep shame and now I feel insane and crazy. And I've had, some couples have said, right, we would start to get into it in regular couples therapy, and then we'd be out of time and there would be absolutely no opportunity to resolve anything. And really, really, the most important thing for a couple to know how to do is to repair. It's to heal. fine if you fight. Everybody fucking fights. You're going to fight for the rest of your life.
Right.
But it's the repair portion that people need so much help with. They don't quite know. Most of us never had anybody, lean in and repair anything with us. So then we have to do that with our partner, and we have no idea how to do that, but it's the most important thing. And so, you dig some stuff up, you're 45 minutes in, and suddenly the therapist is like, okay, see you next week. And you leave their office and you're sort of free floating and you don't know what to do, but you feel like crap. So 3 hours, it gives you enough time to look at the disconnect that has occurred look at the rupture that's occurred between the two of yours, is occurring between the two of you, and then have enough time to really work on repair. So I think you're totally right, Jen.
Okay. Wait, do you have another question?
No.
I can't, we're like almost out of fucking time.
We're almost out of time, but like,
Wait, I
I'm
have one
just,
question though.
oh, go.
We can always edit this out. I have a question, which is, this came up and kind of has nothing to do with couples therapy, but kind of does. Okay. So I'm wondering, is there ever, because you're also supervising these interns that are like still in graduate school, and some of the stuff you're saying is very different than what you're taught.
Oh, very different.
Does this ever become an issue with some of your supervisees? I'm genuinely
like
wondering
where they're like, we're being told, well, so yes, not where they're like, I don't like, I think you're wrong, or I don't like what you're saying. I often get the opposite, right? My number one thing with my interns is trying to help them be who they are in the room with their client, right? That's the most, just give yourself permission to be you. It's sort of like a cliche, like be yourself, but you cannot access your curious, creative side. You have no ability to access that if you do not feel safe. And if you are trying to be somebody, if you're trying to be a certain kind of therapist, sort of this like quintessential, like psychodynamic, sitting in their leather armchair with their pen and their pad and sort of makes these profound statements every once in a while. If that's who you're trying to be, it doesn't feel safe in your body when you're doing this work. And so you can't access the part of you that is curious, that really wants to know, who is this person across from me? And why are they thinking and feeling and doing the things that they're doing? And that's what clients want to be understood at the end of the day. They want to be understood. Please, can somebody just see me and understand why I feel this way and what I need and where it's coming from? And if you have an intern who's trying to be this type of therapist, they can't access, they don't feel safe in their own body, because they're like, fuck, if I'm feeling something come up where like I want to ask a particular question, or I don't think I understand, or I think what they just said, I want to share my clinical judgment, but what if that's not the right thing to say or do, right? They don't feel safe.
Right.
And so it totally fractures it kind of erodes the relationship that they could create with this person. And so I said this to one intern, because she was really struggling with just just asking for more information from the client. Sort of, it's like she went into it kind of thinking like, I should just know what to say and what to do and how to fix whenever somebody tells me, right, like I've got crippling anxiety. And I'm like, how the fuck are you supposed to know what to do when somebody tells you that they've got crippling anxiety?
Right.
You have no idea what that means to them.
Right.
Yeah.
You have no idea how it shows up in their life. You have an idea of what the DSM tells you anxiety is, but get to know what this means to this client. And I kind of just gave her a lot. I was like, just, I gave her permission to be who she is. And I was like, fuck up, make mistakes, let the client get mad at you.
Yeah.
That's okay. And she kind of breathed a sigh of relief, because she was sort of saying, so many of my professors are telling me, ask questions in this particular way. And, you know, they were giving her all of these sort of rules to follow. And that it just was exhausting for her. And I was like, therapy can be exhausting work, right? It's a lot of work to sit with people and to hold so much of this stuff. But it can also be, at the end of the day, you're having a conversation with another person, another human being. That's really what it is. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to spend hours of your week doing that, like, it can't be this exhausting.
No, it can't kill you.
Yeah, it can't kill you. You have to be able to be you in that experience. And that is what your client most wants. Yeah. They want a human connection.
Right. You're teaching these interns to be able to be present with themselves so that they can be present with the client.
Exactly.
If you're so focused on doing the right thing, what should I be doing right now? You're more focused on yourself, right? Like, what am I doing? What's going on for me? And so it's a beautiful thing to be able to teach, because as we're saying, I think all of us have this experience of like, you should be this specific way. And we've all come to the realization that we do the best work when we are ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's so valuable, Amelia, that your interns are getting that information in grad school.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Wait, so I know you're already doing this with your interns, but let's call some bullshit.
Okay.
We got to call some bullshit.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Amelia, as you know, with all our guests, we like to do a segment called Calling Your Bullshit. So will you call some BS for us, please?
Call some BS. Okay. This one just literally came up. I was just doing therapy earlier today. And in the session, this is what I see so often. And I don't know, it's one that, like, I feel like everybody, do you ever like know that something's bullshit so much that you think, you kind of assume everybody knows it's bullshit, but then you sort of realize, oh wait, nobody knows that this is bullshit?
Yes. We talk about that on the podcast constantly.
Right. So this one is, if my partner really loved me, they would know what I need and I wouldn't have to ask. And when I ask, it somehow takes away from when they actually give it to me. That is such fucking bullshit. And it shows up all the time in couples work, but also in individual work.
Yes.
And here's my idea of where I think that comes from. When you're first born, your first relationship to your caregiver is a relationship in which you do not have words to ask for what you need. You only have crying, basically, or maybe throwing things. I don't know. I don't have children. Emily, you can speak to this.
Yeah, crying, throwing, shutting down. Yes, out of control. Yes, yeah.
Right. And your parent has to intuit and figure out and really lean into this, to you, this little baby, to figure out, what do you need? And sometimes if they're really good, they get it. Right? They hit the nail on the head. Oh, she's hungry. Oh, she's tired. Oh, she's cold. Oh, she wants to play. Right? And we take that first understanding of love and we bring it into our romantic relationships. And we basically ask our partner, Freudian slip, to become parents. Right? Know what I need without me actually having to take any responsibility for myself to say what it is that I need. And then we get upset, right? They never do this, they never give me that, they never say this, right? You're going to get what you want more likely if you just say it, if you just ask for it, than if you try to pretend it's not really what you need and instead you throw essentially a tantrum because you're not getting it. So I think that one shows up so often. And then you have the other partner who's like, oh my God, what do they need? You have this person who's trying to assess and manage and figure out, right? And that's an exhausting role to play.
Yeah.
When you could just say, I said it last night when I got home after work, right? I really need a hug.
Yeah.
I think I just want to be held for 5 minutes. Can you hold me for 5 minutes? And then he held me for 5 minutes.
And it didn't
And I
take
got,
away.
no, and I got what I wanted. I felt, and you know why that feels like love? Because he heard what I needed and he responded to it. And then, and it was great. So that's what I would call bullshit on. I don't know. Does that work for bullshit?
Love
That
it. That was
absolutely works for bullshit.
literally perfect. If you are interested in working with one of the amazing interns that Amelia supervises, you can check us out, therapygroup.com. Or if you're looking to book an intensive with Amelia, she is currently taking some opportunities heading into the fall. She has some slots for intensives still open. If you are looking to fast track some couples work that you're doing here. Amelia, we cannot thank you for coming off. How can people contact you, find you? Because it's not online. You won't find her on social media.
No, you will not find me on social media. I hate social media. You can reach me at my work email address. If you are interested in working with an intern, I think that, I don't know if both are listed on the website. I don't know.
And it'll be in today's episode show notes. So it'll be
okay.
In the
you
show
listen
notes.
to this episode, there's show notes of exactly how to contact.
And if all else fails, fill out a contact form. We'll figure it out for you.
Yes, we'll figure out. You can ask me or ask for any one of our amazing clinicians to work with. So.
And as Amelia said, we like to ask for what we need on this show. So what we need is some 5-star reviews. We always like you to follow, subscribe, follow us at ShrinkChicks and the therapy group. Check out our amazing clinicians if you'd like to be matched with someone. We have clinicians located in California, Florida, New Jersey, New York, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts. We are thrilled that you listened to today's episode. Amelia, we love you. Just know that we're some of your biggest fans, and we are so happy you came on today. And don't forget, to anyone listening, don't forget that to grow yourself, you gotta know yourself. We'll see you next week on ShrinkChicks.